All right. Hello, friends of bliss. We are back. We are back here in scenic San Francisco, California. And I'm joined this month by a very special guest. This is my good dear friend, Daniel the Donk Pendleton, advanced sommelier at One Bear That Is Lazy. We're also joined by our friend Kiesel the Diesel. More on that to come. And this month, we are going to take you to the very southern reaches of the wonderful place that we've been to a couple of times already this year, the Österreich, otherwise known as Austria. But we are going to a very specific part of Austria. We are going to the very southern portion of the country, like part of the world that is very well known to ski buffs and people that really like to drive very expensive Italian cars and very windy roads. But not exactly known well to the wine world. We are going to the Steiermark, otherwise known as Styria. And we're going here to taste wines from one of our absolute favorite producers in the whole portfolio. It's one of the reasons why I went to Austria for the first time in general, is because I heard about a particular style of wine being made in this very far-flung corner of the world. And that's how we met Hannes Sabathi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan, what do you know about Styria?
So Styria is it's mountainous. It's a place where you go wander in the woods and go for hikes and runs. Yeah. And they grow grapes there.
Yeah.
As of recently.
Very recently. Actually, since like about the 1980s or so. If anybody wants a fun little aside, in the 1980s, there's something that happened in Austria called the infamous Austrian antifreeze scandal. For more information, please tune into the very first season of The Simpsons. That's how awesome that show is in the 8th episode, they parodied something that happened 5 years beforehand. It's called Grapes of Wrath. You're very welcome, Fox. But until that point in time, there was not much wine grown in Styria because people tried to plant it on the valley floor. Styria is different from the rest of Austria because it gets most of its wind patterns from the Adriatic. There's a little small gap in the Julian Alps that sends a very nice, moist, humid air up from the Adriatic Sea through that gap in the Alps and then dumps it into this little valley. So essentially anything that you grow on the valley floor, like grapes, would tend to rot. In the 1980s, some enterprising young winemaker said, hey, we have all these mountains, all these bergs behind us, and why don't we try planting grapes up there? And that's how this kind of started out.
So literally this is like full-on alpine wine.
Yeah.
So
oh, by the way, if you have not had wine from Styria, that's not a surprise. Styria makes 5% of Austria's wine, and Austria at this point makes 0.6% of the world's wine. So to say it's a niche market is a bit of an understatement. Dan, what are you doing?
Oh, alpine wine into a mountain decanter, of course.
Okay. Well,
more on that later, but for now we'll let it hang out here.
Okay.
I have a bunch to do.
That's just cool. The other little thing that we wanted to mention is a lot of times when you're talking about Austrian wine, you're going to see this little banderole on top. It's a red and white little cap. You'll see it on top of Austrian bottles. It's also the colors of the Austrian flag. If you see this, that means it comes from one of the 16 or probably more. You're studying for Master Sommelier. You should know this. How many DACs are there in Austria nowadays? Yeah, too many to count. But it's somewhere between the 16 and 20 wine regions that are specialized for their quality. So if you see this on the top of a bottle of wine, usually means you're going to get some good shit. Okay, so let's jump on in. This is a winery that's part of an organization of grape growers called the STK, the Styrish. Yeah, the STK. As I said before,
that's why they put STK on the label.
Yes, because
STK we know.
Yes, because as I've said many times before, mein Deutsch ist scheiße, and I know the K stands for classic, and I know the S stands for Steiermark, but the T, I guess I could have looked it up. It's a small organization of grower producers. I believe there's about 11 now, and they pool their resources together to really promote the awesomeness of this tiny little part of the world. This is Hana Sabathi, one of the members, not to be confused with his uncle Edwin Sabathi. They make very different styles of wine and a little cold towards each other sometimes.
I'm glad.
But this is an opportunity for us to go to a town called Gamlitz, and this is where the winery is located. This is where we traveled to in 2016 to source the wines, and it really is one of the most beautiful places that wine is grown in the country of Österreich. So, Dan, let's talk about the first wine. What do we have here?
So this is Hans Sabathi. This is their STK white. This is Sauvignon Blanc from 2021. We poured this in the pairings for quite a while at Lazy Bear against a course that I forget, but it was a wine that I absolutely fell in love with because it Sauvignon Blanc, much like Chardonnay, is a kind of a chameleon. Where it's grown, what it's done, what you do to it, where it comes from, very much matters. And this is a style that I think is kind of what I love in Sauvignon Blanc is it's got this kind of alpine quality. It's grown in the mountains, obviously, and you get that kind of that more herbaceous quality to it. But it's also lean, it's mineral, it's bright, it's got just delicious acidity here, and it's a wine that
I always like to say is I don't want to steal the Donk's thunder, but it's a wine that I've always described to as it's a Sauvignon Blanc for Sauvignon Blanc lovers, no matter what they really, really enjoy about the grape. So let's talk about some of the major places in the world Sauvignon Blanc comes from. One of the most popular right now is New Zealand. New Zealand has this really nice, beautiful, cool, very, very stable climate. Every day in Marlborough is like 71 degrees, 53 at night, and a lot of sunshine. So what you get is a lot of aromatic intensity. So for people that like that really intense kind of grassy herbaceous quality, it's in here. For people that like California Sauvignon Blanc, one of the big things that California Sauvignon Blanc brings to the table is this ripeness of fruit. You get more of these tropical notes. You get more of this mango, this papaya, this gooseberry, all that fun stuff. And this wine definitely achieves it. Why? We'll come back to in just a second. Then you have your classic styles from France. And people that like Sancerre love this stuff because Sancerre is very much changing year in and year out, you know? Like, yeah. Well, not necessarily wolf all the time, but like, you know, the Loire River did dry up last year. Oops. So unless you're having really, really old vines that go really far down into the ground, you're going to get wines that are fundamentally different. And you're getting much more of these riper tropical notes. But this wine is grown literally on the side of a mountain in mostly limestone and sandy soils. And you get that minerality and that bracing kind of high level of acidity. And then that brings us to Bordeaux. Bordeaux is a place that Sauvignon Blanc is blended with Semillon and usually treated with a little bit of oak. Now, there's no oak on this wine. This is just pure, clean, and just on its own. But when we get to our friend Herr Kannachberg, we'll talk a little bit about that wine and what it has to do with white Bordeaux. One of the last things we'll talk about is the fact that this is mountain wine. When you go up into elevation, and sometimes this is like 500 meters, 600 meters up, for those of us, by the way, Dan.
2 degrees per 1,000 feet.
Name the 3 countries in the world that do not use the metric system.
Shoot, the U.S. is one of those.
And the other 2 are Burma and Liberia.
Good company we're in.
Hey, thank you, Archer. Another plug for the Fox Network. Wow, damn, I should really stop plugging Fox. But this is a mountain wine in the sense that when you change the angle of inclination to the sun, what you end up getting is you get a lot more direct sunlight exposure. So imagine the sun being up here, and we're already pretty far north as far as the world of wine goes. The sun is directly beaming down on these grapes. So in order for these grapes to literally not sunburn, they need to have a bigger canopy. So more green stuff to cover the grapes themselves. When you have more green stuff, you have more opportunity for photosynthesis.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I let him into that one. And photosynthesis
How do
is,
grapes work?
you know, that whole like biology thing. You know, Tyler's sitting behind the camera laughing as plant science major. This is going to lead to more aromatic intensity and more of that fruit development. That's where that ripe tropical quality comes in with this Sauvignon Blanc. So what do you think?
Wine is not shy. This wine is here to say things.
Yes.
It's here to be like, hey, I will. You will hear me.
Yes, I am not the wallflower
Not
standing in the corner. I am the person that is doing the samba in the middle of the room, looking for a dance partner.
But it's got that kind of grassy, almost tropical fruit note that I want out of Great Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
Not shy.
And it's freaking delicious, and it's not all too expensive. I think this retails for $25 on our website. And I know, right? Stupidly affordable. And das ist Wein Nummer und. Let us move on.
All right.
So,
Right there.
yes, you shall use Kiesel the Diesel.
Kiesel Diesel.
We're
From Maui.
From Maui, yes. There is no Kieselguhr. Kieselguhr is something we're going to mention in this next wine. Let's put a pin in that for a second. But what Donk is pouring us is a little Chardonnay. Now, you might say, Chardonnay? Why the hell are you growing Chardonnay in Austria? Like a lot of these other wines, Chardonnay came into popularity in this part of the world in the 1980s and 90s because they realized that they could do something a little bit different with it. They can grow it up at higher elevation, they can grow it in a cooler climate, and they make this very, very pristine, very beautiful, kind of like there's some level of just brilliance to these wines.
But Chardonnay is also that grape that like it really picks up what you do to it and where you grow it. Like if you look at like Russian River Valley versus Chablis versus Burgundy, rest of Burgundy versus like
Margaret River.
Yeah, right. Like you're looking at I'm gonna joke. How ripe is that? I think that like this is a wine to me that reminds me of some of the stuff I've had from Friuli. Like the producer Milani comes to mind.
Friuli, for those of you that don't know, is the northeastern tip of Italy that borders Slovenia that also used to be Austrian.
Fair.
Thanks, Napoleon.
Fair.
This is, yeah, no, but seriously, Austria-Hungary used to have a port at the modern-day city of Trieste until Napoleon came in there and put that to an end.
What that means though is like you're looking at Chardonnay and you want to think like how is this going to be presented? A lot. I meet a lot of people who are like I don't drink Chardonnay, and then I pour them Chablis and like I love this. And the reason behind that is you're looking at how ripe is the grapes, how ripe is the fruit, and how much like creamy oak are you getting. And
yeah,
this is a wine that again, Alpine wine.
Really sharp.
No hiking here.
Yeah.
This is a wine that kind of exemplifies that. It's like
to me it reminds
low
me
in alcohol, bright.
To me, it's like honestly, it reminds me of everything I really love about Chablis. It's not quite as oyster shelly. It has this really intense level of acid, but it has this beautiful texture to it. I can say this is Chardonnay.
Reminds me of Chablis.
That's Chablis, bro.
Chablis.
So this is a wine that also, it's got a little bit of age to it. 2018 is the current vintage that we have. This is a village level wine. It's from the village of Gamlitz, which is where the winery is located. For all of you nerds out there, if you wanted to compare it to a German style wine, this would be like an Ortswein. What's an Ortswein?
I think there's about 1% of the population that knows that.
Exactly. You should be one of those 1%.
Yeah.
He knows it. It means it's a village. It means it's a village wine.
Village level.
It's
coming from a certain. It's police.
So the reason why you get this clarity, and when I say clarity, white wines do get a little bit darker as they get older. Red wines get lighter. Eventually, everything's brown. But with 5 years of age, this wine still has this really beautiful brilliance. If you look at it in the sunlight, it almost just reflects right back at you. And the reason why is because they use a very specific type of fining method here, and it's specific to literally this part of the world. I really haven't seen it used in a ton of other places. And this is coming back to our friend Kiesel the Diesel. It is Kieselguhr. Kieselguhr, a wonderful word that is spelled Kieselguhr. Take that to your Scrabble professional. And it is a diatomaceous earth that is super, super fine. It's crystalline. If you look at it under a microscope, it literally looks like snowflakes. So whenever you pour anything over it, because it is completely, like neutral in flavor, anything that is a solid or particulate that you find inside of the wine gets stuck between the crevices of these rocks, and when it comes out on the other side, is absolutely crystal clear. And that's why if you open this bottle of wine and you hold it up to the sun, there's almost no color in it. That is part of the reason why. So a vocabulary word of the day is
Kieselguhr.
Kieselguhr. Yeah.
Also 5 years of age here, and I'm surprised by how fresh that wine shows.
Yeah.
It's like, I wouldn't want to drink this even any younger. It's so
it's perfect
brilliant.
Right now. Yeah. And also, for those of you that are also nerding out on what the aging process here is, it spends 2 months on its regular yeast cells, and then it goes into 1,500 liter barrels, and it sits there for a total of 20 months before going to bottle and being released.
So
okay.
So yeah.
And a big, huge, whopping bliss level of production of 3,000 bottles. Kaboom. All right. Kiesel the Diesel. You are going to take a little bit of Chardonnay to the dome.
Grape.
All right, next up, we are going to go a little bit higher up. We're going to start in our Erste Lagen, or our single vineyards, Premier Cru Vineyard wine series, and we are going to pour you some Grauburgunder. Das Grauburgunder, ja?
Grauburgunder.
German is incredibly intimidating, I think sometimes for people that speak English, and it shouldn't be because they're really related. Grau sounds a lot like gris or gray, so Pinot Gray or Pinot Gris. Grau Burgunder. Burgunder is Burgundy, so yeah, it's gray Burgundy.
Pinot Gris.
Pinot Gris. Not your average kind of representation. This is not Pinot Grigio from our friends further south in Italy. This is not that wine, because I think a lot of times Pinot Grigio is meant to be this really simple, very refreshing, very crisp wine, which this is, except for here you have about 20 months of actual barrel fermentation, barrel aging. And you also have a bit of extra ripeness and texture because you are that high up in the mountains and you are getting more of that aromatic development.
So I think of Pinot Grigio as being the Pinot Grigio, Pinot Gris, right? And they, when people make those wines, they give them those labels. They think of how they could be presented and what style you're trying to go for. When we talk about Pinot Gris, which is a French word, we're talking about Alsace, right? This is very rich. It often has the more rot. It's got that kind of honey quality to it. It oftentimes is not fully dry as well. Very floral, very big. Reminds me a little bit of Gewürztraminer. Like, it's just a big wine. When you look at Pinot Grigio, you're looking at Italy. Stainless steel, mass production in most cases, and a wine that tastes like
white wine.
White wine. But great water.
Yeah.
This wine though hits like it's not doesn't have the kind of the richness intensity associated with Alsace, but it's got this much more kind of linear and mineral quality and like a smokiness. Like I can tell that there's been a lot of very intentional winemaking here to make a wine that can often taste like very little, have a lot of power to it. We're pouring this wine after Chardonnay. This is a kind of a big wine, honestly.
Yeah. This is not Sex in a Canoe.
And this, like, if you like white Burgundy, oddly enough, this is a wine that lines up with that as well.
Absolutely. And
oddly enough,
this is also an opportunity for us, because we get this question all the time. Screw cap. What the hell is this thing, man?
This is the greatest possible way to close a bottle, because like 1 in 12 bottles are enclosed with cork, tends to be corked, which means it isn't going to taste very good. It's also perfectly sustainable. It's glass, it's recyclable, it's made in the region, and also you don't need a wine key. You can just pop it off. When you're going to the beach, when you're traveling, this is a wine that you can do that way.
Like literally, and if you open the bottle, if it's closed,
put it back in.
Kaboom, pop top.
So this is the wine, and
crazy, right?
Also, it doesn't let in really any oxygen, so you're looking at a very secure closure here.
It's local, it's sustainable.
We like.
It works with olive oil, and It is not, again, one of the big production wines, very bliss level of 4,000 whole bottles. If anybody wants another.
What?
4,000 bottles total, I know. 2020 vintage, and if anybody's wondering what is Jagerberg mean, what does Jager mean, Dan?
Jager, not jogging, oddly enough. It references hunting.
Yeah, so it's Hunter's
Jager.
Mountain. Yeah,
Hunter Mountain.
this is a Hunter Mountain single vineyard, about 350 to 500 meters up in elevation. And if you're talking about wines that you want to use with like pork with a light sauce, you want to play some chicken, you want to play turkey, you want to play anything that has a richer kind of a component to seafood, especially anything cooked with butter. This has almost like a slight hazelnutty note to it that Pinot Gris just tends to have because of the thickness of its skins. And it's actually an incredibly versatile wine, and it's one that we are super excited to present because
I consider myself to be a cool sommelier, so I would never order a Pinot Grigio. I also consider myself the kind of sommelier who would sit there and never order a vodka martini. But if the vodka martini tastes like this, if your Pinot Grigio tastes like this, give it to me all day.
Yes, we all.
Mine.
Yes,
I
we all
take
like
this.
a little bit of skin contact on our Pinot Gris, and this does
Skin
have
contact.
just a little bit as well. So to our friend Kiesel the Diesel goes a little drop to our homies.
All right.
Now-
Decanted wine.
Yep. Now, we talked about Bergwein, otherwise known as mountain wine. So what would be more appropriate than getting this delicious Savi B poured out of a iceberg-shaped decanter? Where the hell did you get this, Dan? And actually, hold it by the pun.
It's got a pun.
Oh my God.
This is a friend of mine made this. And
I hope
she does
so.
ceramics, and I was like, I'm gonna use this in a restaurant at one point. So
Let's just put it on the table.
yeah, why not?
You know, let's let
There
our
we are.
friends enjoy the Bergness of the decanter next to our friend the Kronachberg.
So this might be my favorite Sauvignon Blanc I've ever had.
Yeah,
Low
it's
key.
certainly one of my
I
top.
drink wine for a living.
And this is a wine that is incredibly versatile. The Kronachberg is the vineyard that Sabathi prizes the most. It's one of his oldest. It's also the vineyard that is directly behind the family winery in Gomlitz. And this is, I'm sorry, I just need to check one small little thing on the label. It is exactly what I thought it was, under 14% alcohol. It is a perfect expression of what happens when you take this and you treat it a little bit more attention to detail and with a lot of care. So the Kronachberg is a vineyard that is incredibly steep. It has about a 48 to 52 degree angle. Climbing up there when I was a much thinner and less gray man was even a chore back then. But what Hannes does, it's a tradition he learned from, or it's a technique that he learned from the Germans, is right before the vineyard is ready to harvest, he goes out and takes little small fermenter pots, like about yay size, and he takes some of the riper grapes, bunches, and he crushes them, and he just leaves them out in the vineyard. Overnight, over the course of a couple of days, the ambient yeast that's found in the vineyard itself will start to inoculate that juice, and then he picks the rest of the vineyard, goes out and gets all those little buckets, and dumps them into the fermentation, thus starting the fermentation with the native yeast that is found in that vineyard.
So that's
Talk
like
about
sourdough.
Talk about local. Yeah, it's sustainable. It's local. It's great.
I accept this in my life.
Yes, I approve. So this is single vineyard Sauvignon Blanc. A fun story that I heard at Vivinum, a couple of Vivinums ago. By the way, if you ever get a chance to, every 2 years, Austria's wine marketing board, which is very, very generous, so generous that 10 cents from every single one of these bottles goes to its marketing budget. It invites some of the top wine professionals in the world, as well as wine enthusiasts, writers, or just people that want to come to Vienna to host one of the most badass wine fairs that's put on anywhere in the world. Literally every single producer in Austria unless you're in the hospital or something is definitely wrong, is at Vivinum, and they hold it at the Hofburg, which is like the imperial palace. So imagine like having
The Hofburg.
That's Hofburg, yeah, Hofburg, not Berg. So imagine having like a really amazing wine fair in a palace that was once occupied by the Emperor of Austria-Hungary. It's insane. So story goes.
Some of that mountain juice.
Yeah, you can get some of that mountain juice, Ty. So the story goes is back in, I think, 2014, the winemaker for Haut-Brion comes up to Hannes and he tastes this wine and he gets this like kind of perturbed look on his face and he's like, "How is it?" He's like, "It's very good." And then later that night, he apparently got drunk with Willy Klinger, the head of at that time, the Austrian Wine Marketing Board, and he said he liked this wine almost as much as he liked his last vintage of Haut-Brion Blanc, which is pretty high praise.
That's fair though.
Yeah.
We talk about Sauvignon Blancs being usually done in stainless steel, right? You're looking at a wine that is meant to express just brightness, drink it now, just get it down, get it out. This is 19. This is a wine that has some age behind it. And we often think of oak as being like, oh, I don't want oaked wines, but it adds texture. You're not looking at new oak here, you're looking at a wine that it builds in texture, it builds in richness, it builds in body. This is a wine that has more complexity to it, a lot more going on. And you get that, like, Sauvignon Blanc already has this kind of grassy, herbal,
Minty,
like
kind
fresh spring flowers quality, right? It's like this is a wine that reminds me of being like, it's currently April, and this is.
Oh, you just gave it away. We're releasing this in July. It's okay. Pretend it's the same temperature. It's probably warmer now than it's going to be in July here in San Francisco anyway.
But this is a wine that reminds me of like you're wandering around Golden Gate Park. It's dandelion flowers. It has that like herbal, grassy, kind of fresh, like it just rained quality, and the oak behind it just kind of adds a little body, adds a little richness, adds a little smoky quality. It's almost like it's like kind of like light smokiness.
Yeah.
That I think just makes this wine. This is a wine that whenever I see it and whenever someone opens it, I'm like, Daddy wants class.
Daddy wants class. Also, you'll notice if you get when you get your bottles that you'll see an STK, a 1 over the STK on this one, and a G over this one. This is a Grosslagen wine. Styria is the only place in Austria that awards Grosslagen, which means the great growth. And it goes to 53 different vineyards, and it's all based on quality. And it's also based on vine age, is something that I learned. So the vines have to be
Grand Cru.
Yeah, the vines have to be at least 15 years old, and a panel of Austrian winemakers from this region has to approve it to be so. This wine spends 75% of it is aged in 1,500 liter large barrels, Slavonian barrels, and then 25% of it does go into new French barrique. It has this really beautiful, soft, creamy texture because they do a little bit of batonnage. And then once again, it's fined with our friend Kiesel Gore. And then it is aged for another couple of years before being released. That's why we are on the 2019 vintage now. And if you are so lucky as to want to really impress somebody, this wine actually has an older brother, sister, sibling. This wine has a reserve bottling that this past year was awarded one of the top 100 wines in the world by Wine and Spirits magazine. That one is a little pricier, but if you want to really kind of blow people's minds at the table and get one of the really truly best expressions of Sauvignon Blancs in the world, that wine is available as well. The big difference between the two is one gets a longer oak regiment and a little bit more time in bottle. So das ist.
This is the wine that I want to begin my night with.
Hannes Sabathi.
This like my feeling about most wine is how beachable it is. How beach is. First of all, no cork, so that's convenient. Also, 100% beach wine.
Yeah.
Also, like fancy dinner party wine too.
Yeah.
Crossover.
I can remember the last time that we were at the beach. We were in Crete. At the
Crete in November.
in the Libyan Sea.
At a nude beach is one of the great. It was.
It was.
That half beach was.
The wines that we brought at that point in time were not quite as Sabathi.
This is what I would want.
But this is exactly a great beach wine. Aside from the things that we covered, Dan, is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to wines from Styria? Because it's not like I said, it's not a big part of the world. If you haven't seen wine from it, there's a reason.
I think of it this way: is like when I look at like the big regions, like the ones you obviously know about, Burgundy, Bordeaux, Napa Valley, Russian Valley. You can be a mediocre winery and get a lot of airtime just because of that region name. But if you're coming from a region that almost no one's heard about, and someone picks you up and is like, "This is great wine," you have to have a really loud voice. You have to be someone who is producing wines that are on par with some of the greatest wines of that style or being produced, right?
Yeah.
And like obviously a great example of that is when California entered the scene. We had the Judgment of Paris that Steven Spurrier put on, and California in the mid or early 70s bested Bordeaux and Burgundy, and you're looking at an example of that here in a lot of ways. You're looking at an up and coming region that doesn't have a market presence necessarily outside of Austria.
And us.
And us. But the wines are so fundamentally unique and delicious that they kind of demand respect from people who are in much more established regions whose wines go for
considerably more money.
So Grand Blanc worth right now. 800.
Yeah. When was the last time you tried to price Screaming Eagle Blanc?
Chateau de Cam, Y.
So
I
would probably would too. So in totality and at its end, we wanted to say thank you again for joining us for this installment of What's in Your Box this month. We have the opportunity to bring in a guest badass sommelier, the one and only Daniel the Donk Pendleton from Lazy Bear here in San Francisco. If you like the wines, please, by all means, go on our website. You can sign up for our newsletter written by the amazing Allison Gorsuch that you've seen in the last 6 months alongside me. Fortunately, she had to fly back home to St. Louis, so we are lucky enough to have Mr. Pendleton here on deck.
I am going to beat some of you all to the Chronic-Berg.
That's okay. It's fine. That's part of the
solid cases coming my way, I believe.
That is correct. So please go on to blisswineconcierge.com. You sign up for our newsletter, sign up for the wine club, and you can also purchase all of these wines as well as other wines from Hana Sabathi because we have a total of 11. That's right. You can almost get a full case of just Sabathi in time for the hot days of summer. So from San Francisco, Andrey Ivanov here signing off. Cheers. Prost.
Cheers, sir.
And to our friend Kiesel the Diesel, here's some Bergwein. Cheers.